Hi, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Samuel A. Zamor, the author of A War of Stone and Scales, Volume 1 of Book 1 of the Anura Chronicles. And what I want to talk today about is how I wrote a 930-page book in 4 parts and how I am publishing it in 4 volumes. I want to show you all, this is Volume 1, which is right here. This book came out last March 20th, 2025. I have Volume 2, which is in book production right now and should be coming out in the next month or so. This is Volume 2. This is Volume 3. This here is Volume 4. And this is Volume 4.5. At least that's what I wrote down anyways, but it's technically just part of Volume 4. These are my manuscripts. This is Volume 2's manuscript. This is Volume 1's manuscript. The way that I wrote this book, I wrote it in 4 parts because I love epic sci-fi fantasy. George R. R. Martin has inspired me, Brandon Sanderson has inspired me, as well as Glenn Cook's The Chronicles of the Black Company. And I decided to break this book down into parts just for readability and because I'm self-published, and to publish a 243,000 word book all by myself, all at once in 930 pages. That would be a lot of editing, a lot of book production costs, formatting, line editing, proofreading, all that jazz. That would have been a lot. So I decided to break it down, and it's going pretty well, I would say, when it comes to book production. Each book production cycle for each particular volume lasts around 8 to 11 months, given that Volume 1 just came out last March 2025, and we're right at the cusp of having Volume 2 come out sometime in April of 2026. I think we're making very good time. I'm going to be starting book production on Volume 3 sometime this week or next week. And yeah, then I'm going to, in 2027, that's when I anticipate Volume 3 is going to be coming out. I want to bring your attention to these maps and to these dragons. This series, book 1, is it follows the story of Zamor, who is a 16th century marine navigator, and he finds himself interdimensionally transported to a world of dragons. The dragons speak English. They have their own sentient civilization. They have their own cultures, societies, vocations, complexities, just like our world, and they have their own problems. Zamor finds himself marooned on this, desolate planet. There's no water. There is no food that humans would be able to consume. There's also no humans either. There's no other people. There are a bunch of dragon races, as well as, reptilian races and denizens, and they have never seen a human before. Zamor has to go through all sorts of trials and tribulations that are impossible and improbable to survive. And it's a story, I would say, about kind of adapting to new things as they come to you. Even though you have no information, you have no clarity, you kind of just have to run and gun your way through very strange and unusual and life or death situations. I also want to, kind of changing topics here. I want to bring your attention to these 2 maps. The map here that I'm pointing to is the world of Arab Duel. It's where this entire story takes place. There are 5 suns. There's no water, as I mentioned before. There is no typical biological vegetation or fauna or flora that you would expect on Earth or similar planets. There's no chlorophyll. The plants are not made of biological vegetation that we know of. The plants, the trees, they're made out of crystal, and the leaves are made out of fire, for example. The rivers and lakes are also made out of lava that has been pushed up from the surface of from the innards of the earth, over billions and billions of years. The topography and the topology is very savage. There's lots of spikes, lots of spire-like growths, kind of like the fortress in Superman, but that stretch for miles and miles and miles, kind of like continents. That's the scale I'm talking about. The map, this other map that I'm pointing at too, this is the mainland continent of Varishra-Gael, and it's where I would say most of the whole book takes place. That's volumes 1 through 4 respectively. So that's a little bit of context for the world. Now, what I do want to address, and the purpose of this video, aside from introducing myself and promoting this new series, is to talk about what it was like writing this book. I started writing this book when I was 15 to 16 years old. So that was when I was in 10th grade. I'm 29 now, by the way. And like I said, this book came out in March of 2025. So I published it when I was 28 years old. And writing it was a challenge. As you can imagine, 930 pages, 243,000 words. When I first started writing it, I had no idea where I was going to go. I had no idea what was going to happen. I fall into the camp of writers where I'm more of a pantser. If you're new to writing, or if you're not new to writing, there are two camps for writers. You got planners and you got pantsers, or as George R. R. Martin says, you have gardeners and you have cultivators. I think that's what it is. But I'm more of a pantser. I don't do a lot of plotting. I don't do a lot of outlining. The most plotting that I was doing was towards the end of the book. I would say in volume 4, I was writing a little bit of like sticky notes here and there, trying to make sure that I got my action beats right, on point, that characters showed up in certain places. But when it came to dialogue or stretching out a scene or building a scene, I kind of wanted to explore more of that organically. I didn't want to feel like I was doctoring too many things, because I'm a firm believer that the characters, it's their story. It's not my story. I'm just there. I'm a scribe. I am notating what's going on, but I give them full agency. I don't impose my actions, my predispositions, or my beliefs or philosophies onto these characters. They have their own agency. And as I started writing the story from volume 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, these characters started taking on more autonomy. They started to develop their own personalities, their own philosophies, their own perceptions, their own judgments and predispositions, and I, as the author, I was very appalled by some of the decisions that they chose to make. I found some of their decisions to be very controversial. Some of the things they said, I was like, wow, I absolutely don't agree with that. Or, hell yeah, go make that decision. But I just want to be clear that when I first started writing part 1, which is in this really old and weathered journal, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a lot of, looks mothy-in, and, it looks very old. I keep it in a plastic bag just because I don't want, this... I don't want the matter that composes this to just, deteriorate all over the place. When I first started writing the beginning, I knew for a fact that I wanted to enter this world of dragons. I love dragons, as you can see here, all the dragons on the table. I have always felt that dragons are intelligent beyond our comprehension, immensely physically durable, with their armor, and their scaled armor, and they're sage. They have sage-like powers. They have this mysticism about themselves, this wisdom. And I wanted to explore, what would a society of dragons look like? What would a civilization of dragons look like? What would an entire world of dragons look like, given that dragons are immortal? They can live for millions, if not billions of years. And unless they die, in battle, or they die through some type of massacre or bloodshed, they can live for a very long time naturally, an eternity, honestly. So I wanted to explore, what would that world look like? What would that civilization look like? And how would a human integrate into that society, into that world, given that our perception of time is so fleeting? That brings me to Zamus. I knew that I wanted to go to this world. I wanted to, interact with its denizens and build them up and experience their stories and narratives. And I wanted it to be from a human lens. And I knew that when I wrote the story, when I was just drafting chapter 1, I knew that we were going to arrive on this planet. I didn't know what was going to happen afterwards. I had no idea, what was going to develop, how things were going to develop, who was going to be who. I knew that there was going to be Zamus, and I didn't know anything else from there. And it was literally just trial by fire, in the sense, which I think is a little ironic, given that the first part of the whole book, part 1, is literally called The Machinations of Fire. But I wanted to explore, what would that look like? And I just, like I said, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I didn't know what was going to happen. And every time I decided to show up and write, I was just committed to let the story unfold, however way it was going to happen. And that's what I kept doing. Volume 1 took me 4 years to write. I can see here that I started it around spring 2012, and I finished it sometime, I think, in 2016. I started volume 2 May 12th, 2016. And an ongoing trend is that as I started writing, more and more and more, and getting into the groove of, going through the volumes, I was finishing the volumes faster and faster and faster. It took me 4 years to draft volume 1. It took me 2 years to draft volume 2. And they're the same, these journals are all the same page length, 256 pages. And I started volume 3, April 1st, 2018. So that's exactly 23 months. I started volume 4, July 14th, 2019. So that's around a year and 3 months, or a year and 2 months. And then I started volume 4.5, because, there had to be more. And I finished this journal halfway through. I started volume 4.5 April 9th, 2020. So that's exactly a year. So as I continued to write, the story, as it became more and more fleshed out, as I spent more and more time with these characters, it got a lot easier for me to better understand them, to be more connected to the overall plot and the overarching themes and the narratives. Unimaginably, more characters came into play than I imagined, and they all started having their own distinct narratives, their own distinct visions, their own distinct missions. And it was quite the process. I am a firm believer of, discipline. Just keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. So that's where we're at. Like I said, I started this book when I was 15 to 16 years old, and I finished it, I would say, I think May 1st or May 4th, 2020, I think it was. So it took me about 8 years to write the whole thing. And this is just the beginning, by the way. I just want to clarify, I'm going to be continuing to release, book 1's volume. So there's going to be volume 2 of book 1, which, like I said, is going to be coming out in the next, month and a half. So I anticipate early April to mid-April or end of April, and I'll keep you guys posted, of course. I'm going to be releasing volume 3 sometime in early 2027, and then, of course, volume 4 in 2028, and that's just the beginning. Like I said, I envision that this series, the Anura Chronicles, is going to span 9 very large books, each 900 or more pages. if I were traditionally published, you know, that would just be 9 mega books. It wouldn't be, you know, volumes upon volumes upon volumes. But I am going to continue to follow this multi-volume structure for the books. So 9 mega books or 36 volumes. So that's what this series is about. This is a great entry point for people who love sci-fi, fantasy, magic, gods, battles, military fantasy, medieval court politics, high levels of complexity, flying by the seat of your pants, obviously action and adventure, and you know, people who want to grow with characters who aren't yet sure who they are or what they're supposed to do or who they're going to be. So yeah, this book, I'm going to pop it up, link in the description below. It's currently on Amazon. The ebook, the Kindle, is on Amazon as well. It's on Barnes & Nobles, it's on eBay, it's on Walmart, it's on Thrift Books, and yeah, you know, I just want to introduce myself and what the story's about. This is my passion, this is, you know, this is my love, this is what I do, this is who I am, and I'm gonna be releasing more videos, you know, chronicling the Anura Chronicles, chronicling, you know, the writing, you know, my writing journey, my book production journey, as well as, you know, inside the series, you know, how I came up with certain things, what the world building process was like, and just keep you all informed, you know, as more volumes come out. So thank you all for watching. I know it was a little bit of a long video, but thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you. Bye.